It says here Mark's an artist and construction engineer. He's got 30 years experience in infrastructure. He's going to talk about how we go about solving high value, critical business problems with eDiscovery solutions. I'm quite looking forward to this talk. It's it feels like it's going to verge on the real world.
Yes, indeed.
The physical, which isn't necessarily something that we encounter a lot in the digital space. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing how those two spaces collide with this talk. You founded business 2020. You founded a business. We were just talking about your brother.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
He's based in Vancouver, but you try to balance your time. You're a painter, it says here. So
an artist as well. Yeah.
An artist. I want to see some of your artwork, which I'm looking forward to. So there we go, Mark.
Perfect. Well, thank you to everyone, Chalk, for inviting me. So I first met Tom at DigiFest last year, and I found it a really great event. And there's two reasons why I went to DigiFest. The first was I've lived in Eastbourne, Hailsham area all my life, but I've never done business here, so I don't know anybody. And the second one was just to find out what's going on in the tech space. So for me, I was incredibly enlightened by the event. I met Tom and I said, look, I'm more than happy to share the work we're doing. So I'll do that today. So this rather long title, what does it actually mean? And what does this name mean? So auto being self and mutatio mean change. And that's our strapline. So our ultimate goal is to automate the process of change, identification and management, because it causes mega problems in projects. The same as I'm sure it does in IT projects. When somebody says that last minute feature on a Friday night, would you mind if you could just deploy it by Monday morning? And it causes chaos. So that's where it comes from. And basically what we want to do is make the text in data matter. So everyone's forgotten about the text. We all focus on the numbers, but actually people communicate in words. And when things go wrong, all that matter are the words. So that's what we're doing. So what we do is we help businesses solve really high value problems, £5–10 million type issues. And how can we use electronic discovery and mine through all the data that already exists to try and help people? That's what we do. So a bit about me. So yes, I'm an oxymoron. I'm an artist and an engineer. I'm not in corporate life anymore because I wanted to pursue my passion to be an artist. And there's a picture of one of my sculptures which I'm launching next week, which are bronzes, which I'm incredibly excited about. But that's my journey and direction. And on the other side, I did found Automatatio in 2020 to help solve this problem. My backstory before that, my first ever project was Sovereign Harbour in 1991, where I started as an assistant engineer. I worked my way up through the ranks in construction. I was then operations director for 5 years, looking after nuclear power stations, submarine bases, anything big and complex, rail systems, water treatment works. So I was operations director for 6 years, and then I was innovation director at Kia Group for 2 years. So I was reporting to the main board of a FTSE 250 company, helping them to solve real world problems. In that 2 years, I did absolutely nothing techie. All I did was get people to talk to each other because everyone had solved the problem, but that was my fundamental role as innovation director. So that's a bit about me. Where are we? Gosh. So I'll just quickly canter through the problem. Why do we exist? How do we help? The solution, who our customers are and the benefits, and then how do we use technology to solve these problems, which you guys will understand more about. So the one that really brings this problem to life is the post office scandal. That was solved by finding one email in boxes that covered 4 football pitches. So in the current world we live in, how do you actually find the problem? Oh dear, how do I do that? So these underlying issues, they are invisible. We've got multiple parties, multiple systems, locations. You know, how do we actually find this information in the 21st century? Obviously you guys at Switchplane do a lot of work in this area of joining systems together as well. But with those millions of pages, you know, where do you even start? So that's what we're trying to solve. In construction, it's a fact 99% of all projects are overrun late with hidden issues. But what we do is we focus on the unstructured data and we turn them into stories using this electronic discovery. I haven't done my timings very well, have I? To detect and solve those complex business problems. So we don't call them risks, we call them certainties. You all know your list of certainties that happen on every project. It's the same in construction. How do we do that? And ultimately save our money, our clients' money. So the way that we do it is we kind of try and make the invisible. It's all sitting there. How do we make it visible? In 3 simple steps. So the first thing is that we merge stuff together. So whether that's low-level emails, Teams chats, whether that's files, computer systems, whatever, we merge it all together. We then automatically tag and categorize all of that information all the time. So people are familiar with the concept of tagging, but we automate that process. So if all you're interested in is the Foundry, we'll automatically tag and categorize everything with the Foundry and its associated words. That then enables us to mine through all that data very quickly and easily, pick out those key risks and insights that help our customers have a conversation around a topic. So these are some of the people we work with. We're over 20 billion words we've now analysed for customers in the construction sector with some very blue chip household names. But the way that we work, we can apply this to any sector. So we've got 4 kind of core use cases. One is projects, which I've explained, disputes, which are really actually quite easy because most people know the problem and what you need to find, research and investigations. So you can use it in multiple solutions. So here's just a couple of examples of some use cases that we've recently worked on. So the first one is a genuine risk of 5 to 25 million pound range for our customers. An adjacent contractor went into administration with a very complex system and trying to merge those 2 contracts together, understanding where all of the latent defects were, issues, where do you even start? So what we did is we built up a library of all the things that were there. We automatically categorized that against all the data that came across, and that was some 20,000 files in a weekend. Then we could use that standard methodology. We can then monitor those ongoing communications, and we intervene and we hold risk workshops on a monthly basis with the customers based on the data they have against those key risk areas so they can mitigate what they need to do. The second one is we also found one email. There was a dispute on a matter. It was a road job and there was an 8-week delay. Nobody could understand why. And it was because one email was sent that said they couldn't get the road closure for 8 weeks. So we managed to then, okay, here's the email. How do we discuss and negotiate? And they're now proactively resolving that. And then the last one, this is an incredibly large project. They had 600 consents. So if you've ever got planning permission yourself, anybody will know that planning permission is a mission. Imagine if you've got 600 of those to deal with at the same time, where do you even start? So we were helping match against all those planning permissions. So here's the team, talk about me. We've got Ian, he's a chartered commercial director. Paul, he's the brains behind the outfit. So Paul, from a techie point of view, he started on Ford Motor Systems 30 years ago, then worked in Shazam early days as one of the developers, .com consultancy, and built a GIS system, which a blue light government runs their estate on. So Paul's our techie, and then we've got Elizabeth, who helps us. We do 3 things. We do an app, we do managed service, and we do consulting. So that's all very interesting, but how does it work? How do we get to that answer? If there's any questions, please feel free during the talk. So I'm going to put this little slide up here. So can anybody guess what this little graphic might represent? Sort of. So this is the COVID pandemic in a graph. So we launched our business here, March 2020. It wasn't a particularly great time to launch a business, but it did give us 6 months to figure stuff out. So what we decided to do, because we had no data, we had a concept, we had no contracts, we didn't have anything. So what we did is we signed up to the government's daily email update from COVID-19. And we have every single email that was sent from government with a change, because we figured, A, it's going to be complex, B, we might want to understand it ourselves, so how can we actually prove our theory? So we tested everything we did with publicly available information. It's amazing what you can really get publicly available. So I'll dig into that in a second. But what you can see, much like projects, something happens, it's really, really simple. It then gets really, really, really complex. So does anybody remember the tiers, when we had different tiers and different places? That's in here. They were issuing something like 200 changes a day with different rules, different regulations. We predicted the second lockdown because it went quiet, so they stopped issuing stuff. So they were obviously rewriting the rules rather than tinkering. Then we went back into the lockdown at Christmas, if we all remember that. New set of rules, went quiet again, then we got locked down again, and so on. And I still get an email every day with something on COVID. So this is an example of how, firstly, we can take all of that volumes of data. The little coloured blobs are all the different systems. So orange is emails, blue is files, the greens are other systems. So it means we can take a holistic view, firstly, on what we're actually dealing with. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So how do we get all that data in? So the first thing we do is we build interfaces around APIs, which you guys will be familiar with. We use standard construction type solutions, so Viewpoint, A-Site. We're working with many other vendors to bring APIs, but then the more lower level information, so shared mailboxes. We don't try to go into personal inboxes because that causes a number of issues, but shared mailboxes are particularly pertinent. Teams, team sites, channels, SharePoint, and mass uploads. So we work with our customers, we build automated solutions where possible. We try not to manually do anything. So these are all out-the-box integrations, log in, start syncing. The second thing that we do is, as I say, we build up libraries of keywords. So this is an example from COVID. It is the variants. So most people will remember Alpha, Delta, and all the big variants that caused massive issues. There were actually over 600 different types of COVID. So what we did, like we do on projects, is we mapped all of those different names and numbers, and we could track all of those all of the time. So it's the same as how we work in projects. And this automatically gets categorized to all new information that comes in and information that already exists. And then that enables us to just mine through that data. So I'll go into the platform in a second. So we had a tag called Eastbourne, because we live in Eastbourne, so I thought I'd want to find out what's going on. So some of the visuals we'll then start to look at is, so when we put in the queries, what you can build into here effectively is algorithms of search that you're looking for. So you might want to understand the dates field, so you put a specific date range in. You might want to understand two topics together, an any or an or an and match. And we can build up really complex algorithms and just search for all that unstructured data and then just return what we're looking for. So in this case, for whatever reason, Friday on a Eastbourne was a particular issue. So does anybody remember Eat Out to Help Out? So this is the story of Eat Out to Help Out. It's the reason my daughter is now a HR professional and not a hospitality professional. Because of the way she was treated, she said she's never working in that industry again. But if you think about the works you work on, the projects you work on, in the first period you get, here's a spec, here's a scope. You spend a month working out what the scope is. You deliver that work for a month. So this piece of work was 28 days long. And then by the time you get into here, you've got all the reporting, you've got reports coming out, and it still carries on. Secondary causes, secondary issues. So this helps us to just understand the context of any issue and how long a tail it is and how we can intervene to manage. What we can then do is our data analytics team, because we've got all that data, they start to merge and understand on each period. So for our customers, if we've got, I've just used some examples here, we might have 20 key risks. Because every month we can see the difference and change in all those areas, so we can start to spot massive jumps and spikes. So much like COVID, projects work, companies work in peaks and troughs. Myself and Tom were having this conversation when we started. You know, your business goes through peaks and troughs. It's the same as anything. So what we do is we look at the percentage of total communications, and we find that around 2 to 10% of all communications is the one that's about to become a mega risk. The stuff that's 50%, everyone knows about that, but actually what's that next level? So by taking the raw data back out of the app, we've structured it, now compare it back each period, we can really start to understand how these risks are occurring. So I'm just going to go back one and I'm going to open up the app. Is anybody got any questions? It's coded in Java. It sits on a Postgres database, and all of that interface with the front end and back end. We use, I'm going to get this wrong now, we use blob storage to store all our data. So a lot of our customers say that we're actually providing hot storage cheaper than cold storage because everything's on the blob. We don't do, Paul's made some really clever stuff there. At the front end, we use Microsoft authenticators for everything. We don't use our own authenticators because that just causes issues with keeping passwords and all that sort of stuff. Everything's VPN'd in between all the parts within the application. So if, heaven forbid, anybody does get through the gate, then it's all completely scrambled in each different part through the back end. So that's how we've built the solution. All of everything you see has basically been built by Paul with one developer. It's all been built with one developer. I'm just going to try and get the internet to work, sorry. Any other questions? So this is the human bit currently. So we don't use any artificial intelligence. So most people who we speak to say you're doing AI, and Paul will say no, we're not. But what we're doing is some really clever stuff. So Paul, we basically do text extraction on all of those documents, and then we match exact phrases and keywords. So we build up libraries of keywords and phrases. So in construction, we obviously know those key risks, and other sectors, you guys will know exactly what you're looking for, what those bugs are every time you get a bit of code or something, you know exactly what you're looking for. So we work with customers to build up. So some of ours might go to thousands and thousands of tags and keywords. Other ones might go to 10. So if you've got an investigation, all somebody's interested in is 5 things. It could be sofa, chair, pillow, whatever. So that's how we build up those libraries of tags and keywords. We do a piece of work where we can have, let's say, 20,000 tags. We launch it in one hit, and it categorizes everything at the same time. So you can do 500,000 files, documents. Some of those are up to 1,000 pages long. We can tag and categorize that in about an hour, going right the way back through the database. So that's how we build up the tags and the libraries. So we do text extraction on all those documents, and then it'll do an exact match in the database and the code in the background. So let's say it's chair. It'll find literally every word chair. If you've got a 1,000-page document or 987 page, it will find one reference to chair and it will tag it. But if you've got another 20 tags for that particular file, it will also tag it with just that one document, with all of those as well. So we associate all this information all the time. And where we're going in our development journey is now we've got the basics of a graph database because we've built all of this association and data. Now let's let the really clever tools start to help us to get another level of inference. Yeah, we do have some particular challenges that pretty much every single one of my customers will not let us use an LLM. Infrastructure, could be national security type issues. Yeah, I've got one customer who asked me a very specific question of could we disaggregate data, not aggregate, because they are concerned that if everyone has too much information, so how do you disaggregate the data? So yeah, it's quite interesting when you work in those sort of sectors. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons. First one will probably be where the data is stored. So can they prove it's in UK South? Who knows? Second one is you have to sign your life in blood to get any API in the first place. So they're not really keen on it going into another third-party software application. I think that's softening a little bit, but certainly a year ago that's where most people were. And particularly if you're dealing with email, people are very sensitive for that for obvious reasons. And that's how we work. We only work B2B at the moment. We don't do B2C. And it's quite a powerful bit of kit. So it'll normally be the cybersecurity teams we'll be working with or data team. Sorry. Yeah, so um, the answer is probably yes. Um, we can only do so much with. We've now got 2 developers, so we can only do so much for 2 developers in a day. And at the moment, our customers aren't screaming for it. They're quite happy that they can find something really, really quickly. Ticking the box number 1, you know, my biggest client, we've got nearly 1 million documents going back 3 years. They've all forgotten what happened on a Thursday 2 years ago, and if they need to find it, we can. Okay, we're going to find it. Um, so that's where they are. And then when we're picking stories together, like that Eat Out to Help Out story, that's an example where we would help customers all the time try and substantiate something. So they might have not been paid for a particular item. And I'm sure you guys have experienced that. You've done a bit of work coding and somebody said, oh, we never asked for it. And then prove, yes, you did. And this is how it works. So that's where our customers are currently. But yeah, we'd be naive to think that, you know, LLM isn't on the tip of everyone's tongue. Yeah, go on, John. Yeah. 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 So the example of the percentage change report I put up with the percentages, that's what our data team work on, our enlightened clients, where we I wouldn't go as far as to say we will predict the future, but we have a real strong indication that something's going to happen, and it's normally when nothing's happening. Silence is a really indicator that something big is going to happen, positive or negative. Because all the chat goes on, everyone's got excited about whatever it is, the topic of the day, and you get a big peak, and then you're going, I don't know, example would be if you're getting ready to deploy, why aren't we talking about testing? Why aren't we talking about deployment? Or at the other end, if we're busy coding away and we haven't had a scope yet, and you'd expect people to be talking about scope. So that's where we start to look at, Joel, with more enlightened clients of, okay, I'm expecting this. And in some of our really big projects, you know, you've got like a construction program. You guys are familiar with programs, waterfall, agile, whatever it is you're doing. So some of those might be 30,000 activities on a program. So what we do is we put the program activities out to the left or the right, because we can go to the future, and then we'll look at, are we talking about the topics that are coming up in 3 months' time? So if we were doing a building like this one, are we talking about the roof? Are we talking about the doors? What are we, the floors, whatever it is we need to be talking about that month. So yeah, that's where our enlightened clients we're moving more towards. Thank you.